It's Katie Roper with Caring.com. Welcome to our Digital Marketing Academy webinar, Beyond the Buzzword, Why Content Marketing is So Important. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. As always, this is a one-way webinar, but we encourage you to ask questions. You can use the box on the right-hand side of your screen, type in your question, and we will get to it at the end of the webinar. Also, we will send out the presentation deck. It typically takes us a few days, but you'll get a link in your email with links to the recording, the presentation deck, and the summary post on the Caring Partner blog. So watch your email for that. Also, a few words about your host for the webinar today, Caring.com. As most of you know, we are the #1 resource online for senior care. We have thousands of original articles. We've been doing what might be called content marketing for a long time with thousands of articles about all different aspects of senior care. We also just recently passed 100,000 consumer reviews on all different senior care listings. So those consumer reviews count as content marketing as well. We get about 3 million visitors a month to our listings, our reviews, our articles, and our support groups. I'm joined today by two terrific experts on content marketing. Brandy Towns is the Director of Content Strategy, Reputation, and Social for Glenn Devens, one of the premier agencies focused on senior housing marketing. Brandy's been with Glenn Devens since 2007, and prior to that, she was in PR. So she's been telling stories about senior care and senior housing for a long time. Marilee Orsini, the president of Cohen, has also been in the industry for a long time. She had her own home care agency and then later on started a marketing agency specifically focused on home care, home health care, and hospice marketing. A note on Marilee, she was visionary enough that in the 1990s she registered the domain Caring.com, and understanding that the internet was going to be a real important part of marketing for care providers. And my company actually bought that URL from her about 9 years ago when we launched our site. So we've known Marilee for a long time and think very highly of her work. Our agenda today. We'll start out by talking about why content marketing is so important, and Marilee will take that. Then Brandy will talk about how to get started with content marketing and how to identify which content you should create. And then I'm going to talk about how do you get people to actually read all that great content that you're creating. And then we'll open the floor for questions. I do, though, in the questions that people asked as they registered, there were a lot of just very basic questions, which is, what is content marketing? How do I know what it is? And we will talk about that a lot, but essentially content marketing is using informative, useful content as a supplement to advertising in order to engage with your clients, prospects, and customers. And actually this webinar is an example of content marketing. Caring.com wants to engage with care providers for two reasons. One is we think that the more you understand about digital marketing, the more likely you'll be to see Caring.com as a part of your strategy. And we also want people to view us as a valued marketing partner and not just a source of leads. So hopefully these webinars are doing both of those for the people who attend. Okay, I am going to turn things over to Marilee Orsini to talk about why content marketing is so important. And Marilee.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if I can if I can make this move forward. Let's give it a try. Good, wonderful. My role here is really to talk about why content marketing is so important. And as Katie said, people are asking questions about what it is, and hopefully you'll find that out today. But the usage of the word content marketing, digital marketing, they're really talking about the same thing. And the why it's important is a couple of things, and I'm going to cover two of them today. And one is that content is so relevant when someone is actually considering what to do with their loved one who needs care. Now, they may not know if they want to move out of their own home or if they need home care, but usually at the beginning of that process, they are searching for answers to the problem, and the problem is they have a loved one who needs care. So anytime we're purchasing anything, we have the rationale that we go by. I mean, how much is it going to cost? And, is it available in my area? Those types of things. But a bigger thing, and this is probably more important when you are seeking care for a loved one, more important are those psychological factors. And it's oftentimes, I would say more often than not, an emotional decision that encompasses this decision in terms of purchasing services because of the unknowns, because of the complexity. So there's a lot of influencers that go into the buying and purchasing decision and some of those are totally outside of a rational decision-making process and firmly in the psychological process, because people are really looking for answers to solutions, and they are looking to feel more comfortable with their decision, and that really is a very, very emotional decision. So content marketing works really well for that psychological component because it's the content that can be specific, that can answer someone's specific question, that can lead someone down a path of what have others done in the same situation, what does it look like? I mean, even things like what does my day look like when I'm having home care in the home, or when I'm living in another place other than my own home? What do people do, and how have other people experienced it? All of the content around that is really one of the reasons that content marketing works so well when someone is in that decision-making process for purchasing services. The other really important thing about it is the online aspect, and that is how we make those decisions. So you take that thinking about what is the right thing to do, your fact sheet, your list of services, all those kinds of things which are really part of content but going to be part of more of a static content, and that feelings about how does this really make me feel, and does it feel right, and is it the right solution for my loved ones? You take all that thinking and feeling and you marry that with this second most important aspect about content marketing, and that is the technology. The technology that's available today is different than it has been before. More people are online, more people are searching online, and we like to call those micro-marketing moments. And what's happening that is different today than was, say, 10 years ago is those micro-marketing moments are possible because of the mobile applications. People not only are sitting in front of their PC, they've got their tablets, they've got their phones, and so they have the opportunity to search for things, to interact with social environments, and to look up things, find reviews, all of those kinds of things at any moment during the day. So there's no set time or no set place that people can go to find answers to their problems. Now, we do know that people are online and they are searching, and we know that most of their journey is done digitally prior to making that decision. We also know that lots of people are searching for senior care that had absolutely no knowledge of any of their local care options before they started the search. Excuse me. So this is the second reason why content marketing is so incredibly important. And it's because of the technology, and it's because of how people are searching, and that marriage of taking that content and applying it to the feeling aspect, the psychological aspect of the search, and also the technology into how they're searching. That is why content marketing is so incredibly important today. So let's just look at a couple of these things in terms of how we do attract customers, because content, again, is not just that rational content, it's also a lot of the softer side to meet that emotional need, to meet those psychological needs. So what you're really trying to do is use content that answers the searcher's questions, and things have to be helpful, not just facts, not just statistics, but how actually can you be helpful, and can you answer someone's questions, and how can you solve their problems. So, and the other thing is content marketing gives you the opportunity to use content in a variety of different ways. So just because you've created the content doesn't mean you can only use it once. You can actually use it lots of different ways, because again, think of those micro marketing moments. You never know when someone's going to be searching. And if you marry the online content and the offline content, then you have even a better chance of reaching people, so that if they're looking for care for a loved one that has Alzheimer's disease specifically, and they're finding reviews about your service where you train your caregivers, and they're finding information, helpful information, how do you actually talk with someone who has Alzheimer's, how do you arrange a home for someone who has Alzheimer's, so you can actually marry offline and online content very, very well. Now here's just some examples of different kinds of content, and you'll see many more of these as we go on with this webinar, but this is just a few examples of the kinds of things that someone might be looking for, and you'll note here that I've also got media posts, because sharing the traditional media with the online media is another way that you can actually spread your content around. And then there's some specific things to do, creating landing pages that allow you to actually target in someone for specifically what they want to do, and then follow those up with lead nurture campaigns. The content really, really can work to drive business to your home care company. These are just a couple of examples of, this is information that my company CoreCubed has created for some of our clients. It's generic information. It doesn't have a real client's logo on it right now, but we use this content for offline content where we actually send it to people, provide rack cards, but then we take snippets of this and also provide it as online content and write about it and post about it, and use some of these fabulous visuals to draw people in. And here's just another page of examples, the same kinds of things to show how you can marry that offline content and the online content.
Awesome, Marilee. Thank you. Okay, so now Brandy is going to talk about how to drive content marketing within an organization. And bear with me here, because, whoops, we need to switch gears. I am going to pull up Brandy's deck. Oh, and just quickly, actually, before we get started, let's do a little poll. Which of these content marketing tactics do you use to engage prospective residents and clients? These are some examples of things that could be considered content marketing. Let's see what people are doing. If you could just click on the relevant link on your screen. We've got, let's see, about 25% of people have voted. This will be helpful, I think, as we talk about what other things you could do. Okay, we're up to 50% of people voting, and we'll share the results in a minute. Social media is way out ahead at the moment. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. Okay, so lots of people publishing posts on social media, lots of people with educational content on the website. Fairly few people doing either email nurturing or blogging, both of which are really important tactics, so we'll talk about those later. And then the 15% of you who don't yet use content marketing, I hope you will after this session. Okay, thank you all. I am going to turn control over to Brandy. And Brandy, you should be able to drive.
I've got it. Thank you, Katie. Okay, so Marilee did a really nice job setting the stage for the why that we should all be considering investing in content marketing or investing a little more time and resources in it. And I really like how she pointed out that in senior care, you know, we know that it's an emotional decision, or at least a big portion of it is. And so seeing that 61% of you are focused on, you know, educating your consumers online, well, that's what we need to do because the issue is complex. As Marilee mentioned, we also want to build trust. So we want to show caregivers, you know, we want to bring them to life, whether it's in video or in their story, to build the trust among the consumers. Build trust by the testimonials, or the maybe a testimonial from an adult child, or the online reviews on caring.com and other sites could really help build that credibility by third parties as people are continuing to search, and just help them make the right decision for them. And that's where I'm going to focus a lot on here as we get started. But I want to talk about the main objective for content marketing, and that is really getting that right message at the right time in front of the right audience, so you can start a conversation or even pick up where you left off on your last engagement. And it sounds rather simple, but there's a lot that goes into it. So what do we as marketers for senior care organizations really need to do to set the stage so we can be successful? And the first is that we need to better understand our consumers and their online behaviors, which means we need to gather richer data and gather more insights into their behavior and really find out what questions are weighing heavily on their minds. For example, you know, we can conduct surveys, analyze historical content data that we might have, or engagement levels on the content that we currently have or are using in email programs, on social media, on our websites. Really taking a deeper dive into website performance and Google Analytics, and meeting regularly with those who are monitoring our analytics, and not just reading them as reports, but understanding the context into what these numbers are telling us, and how it can help us create better content that's going to move the needle a little further. Another consideration is to find out what consumers are searching for when they visit your website. And this is something that's pretty simple for all of us that we can do on Google Analytics if you're not already. But we can learn a lot about what content might be missing from your website or from other channels that you have by checking out what the top search terms are through your search field on your website. This is called keyword data, and you might have everything. You might notice something that you had considered doing, and maybe you left off pricing for a reason, but everybody keeps searching for pricing. So that gives you an option to maybe create content that will help at least give them results to help drive them for the conversation and to schedule a meeting with your sales counselor. And of course, you want to invest time and money into quality. And quality is the key word here. It's not about quantity and seeing how much content you can pump out this year and how many more blogs you can create and how many more videos you can create, but really focusing on the quality this year. All right, so here are the 5 steps of content marketing. And first and foremost, you need to develop a strategy. And once you've developed that strategy, you need to identify the right content to achieve your objectives. Then you're going to want to begin to create content to fit your plan. You're going to organize that content, plan promotion and engagement opportunities, looking particularly at publishing and distribution. And then finally, you want to go in and test and analyze your metrics so you can see what content is and isn't performing and how you can fix any issues or make it stronger for you. These steps will all help you build smarter content marketing plans, and it will help you reach prospects who are looking for your service, your organization, your community as a possible solution to their needs. Okay, so let's jump right in with number one, which is strategy. Something that we recommend for all the communities that we work with is to start out by meeting with key leaders within the organization and just sit down and really start talking about the following questions. And the first one is, what are your goals for this year? Really, what are your goals, and can you put them down on paper? Who do you want to reach in terms of your target market? And what do you think that they want from you? So I want to point out that developing these consumer personas is really critical in delivering the content focus on your target consumer. So you'll want to spend some time in this area creating a profile of the person or the people or the groups that you're trying to reach and engage with. And really figure out what's keeping them up at night and how can you provide a solution to the questions that they might have or the needs that they might have. So you might even conduct a survey, an online survey of your current consumers to better understand what they need during each phase of the buying cycle so you can spend less time creating the content because you'll have a better idea of what content you actually need. And then finally, you'll want to know what are the biggest needs and are the pain points your organization has right now. So if you're looking from a financial perspective, what are the actual sales goals that you need to reach this year, and how are you going to get there? Maybe you want to develop a strategy to reach adult children, or maybe you have an expansion coming up and you really need to start, signing up future residents, or you want to change perception, just the overall perception about your organization. Or maybe you're launching a new service into the marketplace. But all of these hold very different content needs, and it's just putting it all down into paper from the very beginning. And what it all boils down to is this, is why would and should your consumers care? So what do you want them to hear? What do you want them to feel and experience? And what do you want them to do in response to the message that you deliver to them? There we go.
Are you trying to advance?
I am trying to advance. Let's see.
There we go.
Okay, so content focus. This is possibly the most important part of the process that you need to really map out, as well as the strategy. And you're going to want to figure out the best formula for focusing your content. So you're not going to get this exactly right your first go at it. There's going to be finessing to get desired results. It might take a year, it might take a year and a half, but keep meeting and keep working on it and you'll get there. And what I'm meaning with a content focus is that all content that you plan for and that you create should align with your organization's defined goals. It should align with your clients' needs and reach and engage your consumers at every stage of their buying process. So content marketing is more than just building awareness online. It's also about nurturing leads in every means that you're going to do that. And it's about eventually converting those leads into sales. And so you want to map out a plan with a focus. And I like to talk about how we measure content, because we used to measure everything in likes and views and retweets quite a while ago, but now we're really focused on those conversions, the length of time spent engaging with your content, how does the content really further the prospects down the sales cycle, and many, many more that you should be looking at on a weekly, on a monthly basis and seeing what's working for you. And if you aren't already doing this after today's call, and you can really take a look at what your audience is consuming content and where they're consuming it, so you can deliver the message in those areas. And then when you deliver it, maybe on social, like many of you are doing, take a look at those analytics and see which kind of content resonates best and drives the results that you're looking for. So the key takeaway in this portion is create a clear, unified document content plan for your marketing team that works across marketing channels. It's important, and a recent statistic by Content Marketing Institute showed that only 27% of B2C companies or marketers across the board, across all disciplines, really have a documented strategy. So if you don't have one, you're definitely not alone. but 50% of them said that they had one. It just wasn't documented, and I think we all know what that means. If it's not documented, it really doesn't exist. So you want everybody on your team kind of following the same playbook, if you will, and taking time before you even launch your plan to get your stakeholders together, to coordinate your messages, and to create consistent cross-channel campaigns so that everybody is regularly referring to it and making sure that their plan lines up to what you're actually trying to accomplish. All right. So content generation comes next, and you're going to want to take inventory of the content you have and determine how you might be able to leverage what is already created. So you might be surprised at how much content you do already have, and we all have content in a variety of forms that we can pull together in a quick audit, a fairly quick audit, sitting down with your key, the content creators and the content editors, and put together into buckets what content and what messages you already have content created around. So you can have photos and videos and presentations like this one, web articles, reviews, news releases, event invitations, Facebook, social posts, and images and graphics and infographics. All of those things count as content. And just as you go through all of this and analyze it and take audit of it, just look at each content and say, does this fall into the categories that we determined are going to be important in our initial strategy? If not, and you have a whole section on your website focused on on a message that is completely irrelevant or it's not working for you, then maybe you do have an honest discussion about, do we need this? Do we look at getting rid of this? How could we make this better? And if it does really work for you, how can you get maximum mileage out of this content? And are there other areas you could distribute it? Are there other formats you could create this content in? It's really performing for you. So is it also very searchable? Like, are as many people as possible getting to it and using it, since it is highly popular content? Or is it possible to repurpose on other channels? And this is a simple example of what you can do when you determine if you should create new content. So after you've gone through and you've taken inventory of all the content you have, you're going to find that you have areas where you have a lot of content. And then maybe in some, the awareness stages of marketing messages, you're going to have a great deal of content. But then as you look through more of the consideration stages and when they actually make the decision, you're going to have less and less content likely on your website. So look at how you can maybe create new content to fit your needs. And here's an example of just some questions you can ask your whole team when you're building out your plan. So what's your idea? What's your business objective that this content's going to align to? How long is it going to take you to produce? What's the ROI going to be of it? Who will continue or contribute to the content? Where does this content fit within your sales funnel? What's your anticipated impact? How much will this cost to produce? And most importantly, like as you start going through all this, like, great, we need this content, but how are you going to share this content with your audience? So what type of content works best? When you're thinking about content, it's really important that you evaluate the context and tone and ask yourself if content fits into one of these 4 categories. Is it informative? Is it going to help your consumer? The educational component that Marilee hit on earlier. Will they find floor plans, the amenities, the pricing information, all the services that they're looking for their loved ones? Is the content entertaining? Question to ask is your consumer going to be happy that they spent a couple of minutes engaging with this content? Will it make your consumer laugh? Content that makes people laugh and smile and feel good is often shared. And then, does your content inspire emotion? Does it really pull at a heartstring and really influence their decision making? And so all 4 of these categories are important. They're a good guide to follow when you're creating content. And just understanding, of course, that not all of your content needs to fit every single category, but trying to make them fit into one is always a good idea. Let's see. I apologize. There we go. So after you have assessed what content you already have, it's time to go create more content. You've already looked at the sample content plan from before, and you're going to decide how you can help tell a complete story about your organization. So here's just an example of an exercise that we have found very successful for finding engaging content at senior living communities, and we've kind of dubbed it as a content generation session. And what we do is we conduct a one-day session of interviews with senior living residents, their family members, and staff members. And we go in, we develop just tons of stories, we talk with them, we brainstorm ideas in a kind of mini interview sessions, and then we take those ideas and formulate them against the strategic buckets that we identified early on. Then we put together a plan, and that plan is in the form of an editorial calendar. And then finally, we distribute the content across multiple channels. So we're looking at just how we can distribute this content on social, via the media, on the website, through direct mail, through videos. And an important tool that we use to make all of this happen, if you're not already using one, is an editorial calendar that just aligns all of the messages and all the distribution methods. And then we look at how we can even evolve or change that on a monthly or weekly or even daily basis. And if this seems overwhelming at all, we did do this on a very, very small scale with a community that, it was a system of 10 communities, and they wanted to take baby steps into content marketing, but they really didn't, they weren't in a place to take on a huge investment. So we conducted many discovery and strategy sessions over the phone to learn more about their pain points and what messages or buckets, we're calling them, they wanted to communicate over the year. And then we created an editorial calendar, and it simply had blog posts that match up to their messages, social posts and content, event invitations for events that aligned each month, and then a handful of videos. And those videos were created from the audit that we took, and we noticed we had a bunch of B-roll from previous years, and how could we kind of morph them together to create a message that we wanted to tell this year in the most cost-effective way. And then, of course, pitching news stories to the media to let them help tell our story to even more people. And it helped the system really organize their communications from the beginning and create their first attempt into cross-channel marketing. And now they're continuing to refine it and invest a little more in the content based on what their data is telling them. So you have tons of subject matter experts within your community. And you want to find them and really pick their brain. And it's not just within your community, within your organization. You want to ask these individuals who are leaders and who have ideas to give you examples and to bring the human element into your storytelling. So at the community level, for example, rather than just listing amenities, for example, the pool, the walking trails, the fitness center, the dining room, you might talk to an activities director about what residents are doing. I mean, you're going to get gobs of stories from her. And then do you have a group that maybe meets together every week, and they're learning a new language, and then they're traveling to different places across the community or the United States, across the U.S. or across the world to learn and explore their new languages? Or maybe you have a group that gives back to the less fortunate. Tell their stories so people connect with it, rather than just including that you have a robust activities group and you have a fitness center. Show people that are actually living a successful aging life, and that they're participating in wellness activities, and kind of bring their stories to life. Rather than talking about
Brandy, it's
yeah.
Katie. I'm sorry. I want to leave time for questions, so can you move a little quicker?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, so the internal subject matter experts, you all have them within your organization, so find them and do really start talking about them, because they will provide you with a great wealth of information for your content strategy. And then what content do you really need? I think that's probably a question you're all asking, like, this is great, I understand content marketing, but what should I create? And we know there's a whole universe of content out there, so what do you need to have and what don't you need to worry about? Just make sure it's fresh and it's updated. So if you have a blog on your site or a Facebook page, make sure that it's been updated in the last week or two, not 3 months ago or a year ago. Localize your content. So you have all these content opportunities to link to content that is educational to your audience, but you also want to focus on creating content that has a local angle, whether it's through creating it with the local media, or you're using keywords with a local angle to help you rank on SEO. with SEO, and then stay relevant to the topics that you understand are important to your consumer. And this slide just talks about all the different types of content, and there's many, many more than this, but this gives you an idea of what it looks like. And interactive content is also an opportunity. It's not a necessity, but something that if you can do it, definitely worth exploring, and something to consider, and we can share more about that if anybody is interested. And then co-creating with your audience, another opportunity that a lot of organizations do well. They work with third parties or other organizations and support their efforts in content creation and mutually share beneficial information, and it helps improve their social influence, and it helps get their message to a larger audience. So once this is the remainder, the last 3 steps of the content strategy phase, and once you have your focus and your strategy, you're going to generate your content, you're going to organize it, plan, promote it, test, and analyze. And those 3 steps are going to just go around and round once you get your wheels in motion. And Katie, do we have time for a quick case study on a community?
Quick, yep.
So
you have 4 minutes.
Okay, great. There we go. Well, here's a case study of a senior community that a couple of years ago they were noticing decreasing occupancy levels, so there was not much traffic or conversions coming to their website, and the overall perception in the entire area was that this is a place where the uber elderly and frail people go to live. It's not a place where vibrant, successfully aging seniors go. And so they wanted to change the perception, and they wanted to do it with content. Community leadership was on board, and they wanted to focus internally with their brand, or get the brand awareness internally and build up the internal support with the residents and create a new activities program. And then they wanted us to help share their story externally through development of a microsite, search campaigns, paid media opportunities, and a lot of earned media opportunities. And so we conducted a content generation session, and while we were there, of course, we found a gold mine of opportunities. So we saw, as you can see, like there was a world traveler, and she was planning out her next journey. There was an senior Olympic superstar. They had a former Rockette who continues to dance with the community, and a winemaking group who crush and bottle their own wine for the community. And I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a place for where really frail and uber elderly people go. So we told those stories online. We told it on Facebook, on social media, and then we also put it out to the local media and pitch the stories of all these different individuals to generate interest by television stations and local newspapers to help tell the story. And 2 years later, the perception has really changed. They're seeing great conversions on their website, and they're continuing to refine their messaging. And so with that, I will turn it over to Katie to talk more about how you could distribute this content once you have it all created, and what some of the best practices are and tips that she has for success.
Okay, let's see if I can get back to the other presentation here. Okay. All right, so thank you, Brandy. That was fantastic. I'm sorry I had to cut you off. We're getting all kinds of interesting questions, though, and I do want to make sure we have time for those at the end. Quickly, before we dive in again, let's see if I can, there should be a poll on your screen to find out which of these content promotion tactics are you using. As Brandy mentioned a couple of times, you can, once you have this great content, you can often use it in multiple channels. You can use it online. Marilee showed you some examples of content offline, which is a very valuable way to use content marketing. So there's lots of different options. You don't have to create content in a vacuum and only use it in one channel. We talked a lot about this actually our last webinar on social. If you didn't join us for that and you're interested in how to use content across social marketing channels, I would encourage you to go to our partner blog and check out the post there on social marketing. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and close the panel. We have a lot of people optimizing content for search engines. Wow, almost half of people have tried promoted posts on social media. That's really cool. Sponsored content campaigns are a good one. Okay. Awesome. Well, I will dive in here. So, you know, there's the Cohen that everybody talks about. If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it make a sound? Similarly, if you write great content and nobody reads it, did you waste your time? So I'm going to talk about some ways to get people to read the content that you create. And typically in the media industry, when you think about sources of readers or viewers or people engaged with your content, you sort them into 3 buckets: owned, earned, and paid. Where owned are the people who you already know, who are consuming your content because you've told them about it. Earned are people, are viewers who find your content because somebody else who they knew decided it was great and decided to share. So this is PR. These are social shares, these are consumer reviews, these are things where people decide that they want to promote your content to their audiences in addition to yours. And then finally there's paid. So this is a situation where you actually pay money to an organization to get your content in front of their audience. I'm going to show you some examples of owned, earned, and paid engagement. And this is examples from caring.com. People don't like it when I push our site, but this is what I have and what I know. So, you know, you can find these same owned, earned, and paid options in other areas too. On the left of your screen, you'll see an article on caring.com, ways to pay for home care. And within that article, we have loads of links to other articles on caring.com, to our home care agency directory, which is how we make enough money to pay our writers and journalists. The other thing you can see on this page are traditional banner ads from our partner Right at Home. This is advertising. We've gotten a few questions about advertising and how do you use that. That's actually a topic for a different webinar. What we're talking about today is the content that those ads run around. On the right side of your screen is an example of one of our newsletters. This goes out to people who've opted in, and we highlight new content on caring.com and send it out with a link back to drive traffic to our site. Because we already know these people, this counts as owned engagement. I will point out down at the bottom of the Caring Suggest newsletter, you'll see an example of paid engagement from one of our clients. So they actually pay us to put their content in our newsletter. Here are some examples of earned engagement. This is other organizations evaluating the content that Caring produces and choosing to showcase it on their own sites. AARP showcases our senior care directory in their caregiving channel. They chose us and invited us to put our content on their site, and of course we said yes. On the right is an example of PR mention. The Bergen County Record and their website northjersey.com was writing an article on Alzheimer's. They found their content online and approached us to do interviews. Both of these are earned engagement. Here are some examples of paid engagement. This is actually paid engagement on caring.com, where partners are paying us to get their content in front of the 3 million visitors to our site. So the one on the left is an example of Home Instead, one of our home care partners. they put together a number of really terrific videos on what it's like for a family caregiver to change over and become a paid caregiver once their own loved ones no longer need care. So this is a recruitment tool, and we push this out in front of our audience to get family caregivers to think about this as a possible option. The one on the right is an example of a paid campaign from the B Group. They had terrific content about how new retirement communities are not at all like the nursing homes of old, and again, they paid us to showcase this content to the 3 million people who visit our site. Brandy talked about measurement. You can see on the bottom an example of how the measurement information that we provide our partners. So in this case, you can see we had sent, as of the end of June, we'd sent 12.5 thousand unique visitors to this content. They viewed an average of 8 pages during the course of their visit and spent over 7 minutes engaged with this paid content. So those are pretty powerful statistics. This was from the Home Instead campaign, and the session duration was largely because they were watching the videos. The lines between owned, paid, and earned get a little blurry. You can see this here in a sample post on Facebook. Caring posted this. By the way, this was not our content. This was BuzzFeed content, but we shared it with our audience. This is an example of owned, right? We shared the content to people who are friends of caring.com on Facebook, and we included a link back to relevant content on our site. So you could call that owned. You could also call it earned because people had to like the content, share the content, and click on the link to go to our site. From the admin panel on Facebook, you can see a couple of other things. You could see that this share reached over 44,000 people. And then you have the opportunity to boost the post. That's the paid option that we were talking about. Sounds like about half of you are already using things like this, but that's a fantastic way to get your content out in front of people. Most of the social sites now have figured out that businesses will pay for this, and so it's very hard to get it for free like you used to be able to. But there are some free things you can do. And if you're on this call and you're interested in content marketing and don't have a huge budget, I would suggest doing these 3 things. The first one is to set up a blog and post regularly. If you're going to set up a blog, make a commitment to post at least once a month and ideally more frequently. It's worse to have a blog that has no posts in the last 3 or 4 months than it is to have no blog at all. So if you're going to do it, do it. Another thing that absolutely everyone on this call should be doing is nurturing your lead bank. And this can be a really thorough, well thought out program. Our next webinar is actually on email marketing, but it can also be just sending a quick note to people who've inquired about your services in the past, letting them know about your new blog post. You know, dear so-and-so, I just posted a blog on senior isolation and loneliness. I thought it might be appropriate and you might be interested in it. If your mom is lonely, we could have a caregiver from our agency come out and sit with her for a few hours. Let me know if you'd like this. Boom, content marketing. And oh, by the way, you're doing lead gen too. Another free thing is to cooperate. You saw how Caring shared that article from BuzzFeed. That's very common. It's very accepted. You can also request guest posts for your blog, and most people will say yes as long as you link back to them. And you can engage your residents or clients and your staff in writing blog posts. They're usually happy to do it, and it's great free content for you. On the paid side, if you don't have a huge amount of money, but you have a little bit, there are some other things you can do. One is promoted posts. We talked about that, and it sounds like half of you are using that already. Another is PR. I put this in paid because if you don't have specific skills around PR, you really ought to be working with a professional. It's hard to get the attention of journalists, and people who know what they're doing can really help. I know that both my co-presenters offer PR services as part of their packages. And then finally, SEO. This is a very long and complicated topic. I'm not going to cover it a lot today, but I've put it in paid because, again, this is not something you can do by yourself. If you put it out there and just expect Google to find it, I can tell you it's not going to happen. You need to either work with an SEO professional, or there's another option that we talked about in our webinar on SEO, which is a barnacle strategy, where you take your content and, like a barnacle attaching itself to a bigger ship, you attach your content to a bigger site that does get lots of love from Google, and you know, kind of let them pull you along the way a ship does a barnacle. Caring.com offers this service to our partners, and if you're interested in more information about the barnacle strategy and how to make it work, go to our partner blog and have a look at the SEO webinar. We do get a lot of feedback from people that this whole content thing is really confusing and complicated, and what do they do? And I'm thrilled to announce Caring's new content marketing program, Content Made Simple. What this is a 4-pronged program. Every month we're going to be posting what we call content sparks. These are ideas of things that you can write about on your blog. We're not writing the articles for you, but we will provide ideas. We'll provide resources that you can use, that you can link to, and hopefully these will spark your own creativity and give you some ideas of things you can write. We'll also have a number of content best practices articles. All of these will be on our blog, partners.caring.com. And Content Sparks and Content Best Practices will be available to anyone who comes to our blog. For paid Caring clients, there are 2 other aspects of the program. One is our Expert Rolodex. Brandy talked about all of the experts that you have in your communities or your agencies. Let us know about them. Register them with us. Tell us who they are and what their expertise is. And when our journalists are writing articles about that topic, we'll reference them. And if we get a call from an outside PR person who wants, like the Bergen County Record, who wants to quote someone about Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or senior housing or whatever, we'll be able to check our Expert Rolodex and refer them out to you. This is a fantastic way to get your content and your expertise out. We will also allow Caring clients to republish content from our site. So if you need 3 or 4 articles for your website, you can take them from Caring.com, and as long as you attribute them back to us properly so that Google doesn't ding you and us for duplicative content, you're welcome to them. We do ask that you work with your client services contact to make that happen. Our Content Sparks for March are live on the blog right now. The first one is this survey that I talked about before, where seniors are actually not, everyone has an image of seniors being lonely and isolated, and it turns out that actually they're not. They're a lot more social than everybody thinks. This is brand new research from us. The details will be published next week. So if you want to write a post about senior isolation or lack thereof, you'll have to check the blog next week when we've actually got the data posted. Another content spark for March, spring cleaning. If you're a home care agency, you can post about how important spring cleaning is, and this is something that you could help people with if it feels overwhelming to an older person. If you're a senior housing company, you could talk about spring cleaning in the context of downsizing and making it easier to make a move eventually if the person wants to. And then finally, a breath of fresh air. This is obviously a spring topic, but we've got some great resources on the blog that you can access. Okay, and it looks like we do have a little bit of time for questions. So I am going to pull some up. Question for Brandy. What percentage of a marketing budget should be spent on content and content marketing? Is there a stock answer for that?
Well, that's a good question. And those who have made a commitment to content marketing and to really developing a strategy and organizing all of your messaging across your channels, you're going to find that that's going to take up the largest portion of your marketing budget, because everything that you're doing, whether it's traditional or online, is going to be working together, and you're going to create content that you can leverage across all channels. So there's not really a you're going to spend 70% on content marketing, but you are going to see, if you're developing a strategy and mapping out your messages, that is definitely going to take up the largest portion of your budget. And that's because content falls into all three categories of your marketing strategy. It's going to fall into the paid, the owned, and the earned. We know social spend is up, as we're seeing some of you experiment with social ads and also focusing more on your social strategy. Earned media, connecting with those influencers, and all the great things that Katie just shared on how you can get your word out there and get third-party credibility. So that does not mean that if you're an organization that only has a certain amount, a much smaller amount to get started with, I would still recommend that you do dedicate, even if it's a 10% of your budget, to content marketing efforts to get started, to see if you can get some pieces to work for you and what your ROI is, and maybe next year you can increase your spend.
Yeah, and now you have Caring's free programs, so you can supplement a small budget with that. Another question is around using content marketing for lead generation specifically. Any best practice thoughts on that? Maybe Marilee, I'll start with you. How can you turn content into a lead gen tool?
If you have some good content that is appropriate and applicable, we use it. We develop landing pages, and then we give away some content and collect the information that lets us know specifically what someone is interested in, and then it also allows us to take that lead and put it in one of our nurture programs. And then if the nurture program is specific to what the person is interested in, you can continue to give them more information and more content that it aligns with their interest. A lot of the decision-making process is not an immediate process. It really is a long-term research for what is the best solution for care for my loved one. So they may start in one spot, do something to solve an immediate problem, but then it might be a long-term approach also.
Okay. Let's see. Brandy, what do you think is the best social media program or platform? Any thoughts on that?
It depends entirely on who exactly you're trying to reach and what message you're trying to share. But if we're looking at the audience of seniors and their adult children, then Facebook is the leader in a space where we're finding the most engagement and the most in our demographic area there engaging. We are watching Instagram. It's coming up, definitely looking at that and seeing how we might be able to best use that. But all of the communities that we're working with that have started out on social, we recommend starting on Facebook first and foremost and getting your word out there.
And I'd also like to throw in Pinterest. I'd like to throw in Pinterest as another one that we see a lot of activity on and interest, particularly for the adult daughter.
Yeah, Caring actually sees a lot more engagement through Pinterest than through Instagram. All right, we are out of time. We will be sending out the slides so you can go through this later. I would encourage you to stay in touch with us. Caring's next two webcasts. The first one in March will be about our new partner portal. This is a tool for Caring partners to keep track of the leads and referrals we send. And you can see not only which leads are converting for you, but also which are converting for any other communities in the area. And then in April, we're back to content marketing, and we'll be talking about email, how to set up and run an email nurture program. And this will be with SoftView, who is a service provider to the industry, and they are actually doing a pilot with Caring.com to help us take our own email nurture to the next step. So Thank you everybody for attending, and we'll see you in the future on Caring's Digital Marketing Academy webinars. Thank you. Bye-bye.